David, I'm so excited that you're here today. Let me first introduce you to anyone that may not know you. Uh, David, his interest grew out as a young teenager. In fact, he discovered he could play most songs on the radio by ear, and he began composing peaceful instrumental piano music while still in high school. 2010, his instrumental CD release, David Told Christmas, peaked at number 8 on the Billboard New Age chart for the week of December 25th, 2010. In February of last year, David released his newest album, Blessings, which peaked as the #1 best-selling New Age album on Amazon shortly after its release. His music has received almost 400 million streams on Pandora. That just boggles my mind, and 45 million or so on Spotify. Now, this is the best part. He also has a law degree and practices law during the day.
That's the worst part.
What an inspiration, because I mean, there are so many of us out there, including yours truly, that keep saying, oh, I can't be a musician. I can't do CDs. I can't produce. I have to work full time. And somehow David does it all. It's just phenomenal. So I'm really excited to have you here tonight, David. So I can see some of the people that have joined tonight are regulars, and thank you for coming. Some of them are composers themselves and performers and very talented people. So I'm sure they're going to get a big kick out of this. And it's great to talk to someone that's so successful on so many levels. But let's start with this. I'd love to always ask my interviewees, what was your life like as a child? Now, your mom was I think a concert pianist, right?
Correct. Yeah. She graduated from Juilliard, just a fantastic pianist. And so she taught me and my siblings from when we were very young. And so it was a very musical household. My father is very musical as well. He conducts choirs and ensembles. And so it was a great place for me to grow up.
Now, do you remember your youngest memory as a child as when music first came about? I think I remember that, who was it? There was a famous musician whose grandfather would, when he was in the crib as a baby, the grandfather would take a tuning fork and put the A tuning fork right up to his ear every morning. so I don't know if you had any experience like that, but did you have any experience that, as a child, that was a seminal moment you remembered something about music that really impacted, like you remember your mom playing, while you were in the womb? I don't know.
So there was always music playing, and my mother she would teach. She had a large group of students, many of whom also went to Juilliard, so she was an excellent teacher.
Wow.
And so I think it was just kind of a cumulative exposure to that, and coming home from school and just hearing just the wonderful classical pieces that were being played all the time. It just as a very young person, it was a bit too much, but then it started to settle in and resonate with me, and I just thought this is the best.
When did you find out that not every kid was exposed to that? That must have been, because as a kid you think the whole world is like that,
So funny thing. So I'm married to Lisa. Most of my music is inspired by her.
Yeah.
But she was the one who told me. She came into our home in Tennessee, and my parents pulled out the Handel's Messiah books, and we were singing in 4-part harmony, which I thought everybody did. I thought that was normal, and Lisa said that is not normal. Everybody else is watching, the Green Bay Packers,
Charlie Brown,
watching the
Christmas.
NFL. They're not singing the Messiah.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. So, a lot of people really struggle with the decision to be a musician or not, or to have a career choice. Which way do I go? In your case, you did both, which is quite commendable. How was that? How did you come about that decision? I mean, was it even a decision, or did you just kind of naturally fall into it? I mean, how did you end up being both, a lawyer and a musician? Because that's an interesting combination.
Yeah, so I think there is kind of a false notion that to be a musician, it has to be to the exclusion of everything else. And I've never really believed that. So I don't remember like a specific point. I just decided, I most likely I'm gonna need to have a day job. And so I might as well have something that's fulfilling and that I love and enjoy. And there are lots of very young musicians who come and talk with me, or their parents send them to talk with me about what to do. And in almost every case, with only 1 or 2 exceptions, I've said, you pursue your education, continue to develop something else, because it doesn't have to be to the exclusion of a different profession and career. It's worked out wonderfully for me, and I get to do wonderful big concerts and do all these things that all of my friends that are the struggling artists, we all get to do the same stuff, and I get the the satisfaction of also having a day job that I don't resent.
That's
At
wonderful.
least not that much.
That's wonderful. Well, it's interesting how I came across your name is I know Doug Hammer. Years ago, I met him when I was at a showcase for composers, and I introduced 3 songs for kind of Broadway kind of type songs, and he agreed to accompany us in the introduction of them. And he ended up helping me on my first album as a sound engineer and also helping to orchestrate. And so I have a profile of him on Pandora, and then your music came up. The first piece that came up for me was Between the Lakes, and I'm going to play a little bit. Maybe I'll play the whole thing now. I love that piece. I mean, there's something incredibly simple and yet haunting and wonderful about it, and soulful. And the symmetry about the music and the way it works is also wonderful for students. So some of my students are actually learning that piece and loving it. And I think it's a great way to teach coordination of 2 hands playing different notes at the same time, but in a sequence that's the same. So there's a certain symmetry and asymmetry at the same time going on. But it's just a wonderful piece. And let me do this now. I'm going to share the screen. I want to make sure I do this right. Share sound. Here we go. Screen here. I'm going to stop it there because I want to talk about it some more. I could listen to the whole thing, of course, obviously, but so tell me about how do you go about coming up with something like this? How do you get the inspiration? Is there any special story about how you came up with this idea? Was it just your hands moving in the piano in a certain way, or did something come to mind that influenced you, or how did you go about it?
So this one, and this brings back memory. This is my second album, so this is all the way back to 1997. So
oh wow.
I have not sat and listened to this for a long time. So that was, thank you for giving
oh
me
my
that
God. Yeah.
It's fun. And it was fun to watch look at that album cover. So this one, so I was married, became married in 1991, and shortly thereafter, my wife and I went with my mother and father to Europe, and we were in Switzerland, and we went to a place called Interlaken, and in the Alps. And there were chalets, and you could go up to the top of the Alps, and we had fondue, and there was German music, and it was wonderful. And so that was the experience that inspired this song, Between the Lakes, which is Interlaken. So we were between the lakes.
Ah.
So, when we came back, I sat at the piano and just it was one of those where sometimes I'll have an experience, then I'll sit at the piano and say, how do I create the soundtrack for that experience retroactively after I've had that experience?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. As I wanted to recreate, and of course it doesn't sound like a polka or anything like that. It's of course through my lens and in my framework. This was my experience in Switzerland, the peacefulness of the lakes, the clear lakes and the mountains and the snow. And so that's what I was trying to capture, was that soundtrack from that experience.
In a way too, spatially, you create almost two lakes because you have these separate little idioms going on simultaneously in two different places on the keyboard. It's almost like this is a lake and that's a lake, and then you move those two lakes around. In a way, I mean, there's something almost physical about it, but I still get goosebumps listening to it. I probably listened to it 100 times. It still affects me. It's just wonderful. So thank you for that. Is there something special about the album cover? Because that's a cool cover.
So yeah, back then this was pre-internet, and I somehow, so I grew up in near where you are. You're in New England. I grew up in New Jersey, and I love that part of the country. I grew up in New Jersey, and I love kind of the Americana folk art. And so my first three albums are basically Americana folk art. Kind of the small, just colonial town feel. And so we found a painter that had painted that, and we got her to license that to us. And back then, I think she had to take like a high-res photograph of that and then send it. It was very complicated. It's much easier now.
Yeah. Now the next one I want to play is something that I also heard on the Spotify on the Pandora channel, In Reverence, and this is actually put together by a fellow that you gave permission to use for his seminars on forgiveness. And so he does a beautiful video rendition of your song. And again, this one also just gives me incredible rush of just wonderful feelings about life and just, So I'm going to play this now. This is called In Reverence, but let me first share the screen because none of you will be able to see it if I don't do that. So In Reverence. Anything you want to say before we start that in terms of background on this?
So this is a very special song for me, and this song actually has, I think, close to 150 million streams just of itself.
Wow!
It has resonated with people, and fun fact: Stephen Sharp Nelson, who's the cellist for the Piano Guys, played the cello on this song, and actually helped me arrange the violin and viola parts.
Wow!
Back in the day, and now he's and he was just out of high school back then.
You guys went to school together. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I knew him back when he was just a wee lad in high school, and that's special for me. But I just want to really quickly just tell that this song was inspired by an experience that we had. We were in Cape Cod with our family, my wife and I and our young children. We were at the beach, and everybody was doing beach things, throwing the frisbee, and then the sun started to set. It was this big, beautiful orange orb in the sky, and we just kind of stopped and we were looking up at it in reverence. And then I looked around, and everybody on the beach had stopped what they were doing and were doing the same thing. And so there were hundreds of people in reverence looking up at this beautiful scene in nature. And I just thought they could have missed it. Any one of us could have missed this, but if you have the ability to discern and say, oh, we need to put down these diversions and worldly things that we're involved in and have an experience. So that's really what the song it was inspired by that, in reverence. If we can have reverence and remember to appreciate the beautiful things around us, then
God, we all need that, Lord. We all need that. Yeah. So here we go. In Reverence. I have to tell you, I still get goosebumps every time I listen to the piece. I just absolutely love it. Now, it's interesting in the beginning. I would never have thought to have done this. You have this long, drawn out kind of drone sounds for a while. And I always thought it's like when you go to a fancy restaurant and you have um, something to cleanse the palate before you get into the next piece. It's almost like you're cleansing the sound palette for all of us. It's kind of a way of creating this I guess they call it a patch in the music business, but and then the music overlays on top of that. But how did you think about that, or maybe you think about it differently, or just wondering how you even came up with that idea?
No, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. I think that's kind of neat. But yeah, so
Mm,
the way that I was looking at it is kind of in a very simple way, kind of setting the tone for what's coming. We've got
right.
this one note that's coming,
Yeah.
and it's going to develop into something. And the cool thing is that note remains through almost the entire piece. It does shift a little bit when it needs to, but I
Yeah.
wanted it to remain on that A for as much as possible. It just kind of creates some continuity there and pulls the whole thing together, and it's subtle. And I almost like that. Like some people may not even notice that it's there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just kind of an ethereal element that helps connect us with something.
It's almost like that pedal point where it just keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
I know there's a famous Rachmaninoff piece that I played at one point. I can't remember the name of it at this point, where even though the chords would change all over the place, he had this bass note that just kept, this pedal note that sometimes was dissonant, but it just kept you grounded in a way it had a very romantic, effective sound to it. So,
I love
um,
that.
but anyway, yeah, very nice. So let's move on. We got so much to cover. So this next one uh, from the Impressions album, this is, I believe, Sacred. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
So I
right.
give that. By the way, you did tell me in our pre-run that there's three things that move you in life. There's your faith and nature, environment, and your family. And I think that's just a wonderful thing that permeates all of your writing. But did you
Yeah.
want to give us a little background on Sacred for?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And this one may cross the boundaries into two different categories. This song, the inspiration for this song, my wife and I actually had some concerts in Hawaii, which is a good place if you're gonna have some concerts. It's good to go to Hawaii. And we were
Mm.
snorkeling for my first time. I'd never snorkeled before, and while we were snorkeling, my wedding ring somehow came off of my hand, and I was like,
Ah,
"Oh no, this is bad!"
oh
And I could
no.
see it go down, and I could see it on the top of this reef. And so I went down under the water, and I got it, and I was excited, and I came up out of the water, and I said, "Lisa, look, I've got my wedding ring." She didn't know what was going on. It may have looked like I was playing with my wedding ring in the ocean, which you shouldn't do,
No.
but
Yeah.
that's not what I was doing. But it just made me think about, so what if I lost my wedding ring? It's what it represents that would be the horrible thing to lose. The most
Right.
sacred and special thing in my life is my relationship with my wife and the family
Mm.
that we have together.
Yeah.
And so this song is really about those things that, what things rise to that level where you would say that's sacred. And I
Yes.
think in our world today, there's kind of maybe some disdain for that. It's like, well, um, for the sacred, and we need to have those things that are special that we protect. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's my family, my relationship with my wife, and my faith. Those are the things that are sacred to me and that are just so special that I want to protect. And so that's really kind of what gave rise to this
Wow.
song,
What a
was just to
great
kind of
back.
celebrate that concept.
By the way, I'm glad you told us about the orange sunset before because there was some images of that actually in that video that was just wonderful. So,
Yeah, and he doesn't know that. Yeah,
oh,
he didn't know that story. So
all
coincidence?
right.
I say not.
Yeah. Okay. So sacred. David, we have so much to go through tonight, so I'm going to cut that a little short. I hate to do that, but
that's
I'm
just
getting some
fine.
wonderful messages from people saying how much they love your music, and Sandy says, you know, I wake up to your music every morning. It's just wonderful to hear these people so dedicated to your music. And
Wonderful.
you know, there's a show called Steve Colbert, and he has something called the Colbert Questionnaire. And he said to really know someone, you have to answer these 20 questions. And one of them is, if you only had one song to listen to on a deserted island, which song would you pick? And I'm thinking any one of these would be like the perfect song if it's the only song you could ever hear for the rest of your life.
Oh,
You know,
that's very kind. Thank
very
you.
kind. It's a very, very, so, oh my God. So this next piece moves me because I was actually a member of the Thoreau Society. And as you know, my CD, my small little CD of 7 pieces called Wonder and Dreamland is basically inspired by David Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. But you've done a wonderful job putting not only the music together, but also the video for this. And I believe you found a partner that helped with the imagery. But this is just a magnificent video. And so, anything you want to, you actually went to Walden Pond, right? And were influenced by
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
So
you
I
want to
grew
talk
up
about that a bit?
yeah, I grew up near there, and so I had always been fascinated with it. You know, my undergraduate degree was in English literature, so I got to study Thoreau. But there's something, as you know, very special about going to that site, going to Concord, going to Walden Pond, and just experiencing it. There's something very, very special about it.
Mm.
And so my wife and I were there the summer before last. Just had we walked all the way around together. It's so peaceful and meditative, just wonderful. And I decided at that point I have to write a song about this. I need to write a soundtrack.
Mm.
Again, that's my experience with Walden Pond and with the woods that surround it.
Hmm.
Um, and then I found this videographer, Scott Miller, who's some of his footage has been on CBS, the news, their morning show on Sundays. And I reached out to him and I said, Scott, I've just written this song, and he's a member of the Thoreau Society. Here's the song that I just wrote about Walden Pond. It would be my dream come true if I could couple this musical soundtrack with the visual images that you've captured. And
Yeah.
he was so excited about it. And so we put it together as this marriage of these two different media.
Yeah.
And it was a dream come true for me to be able to put my music with images of this caliber, footage of this
That's
caliber.
great. By the way, if anyone is really enamored with the Thoreau experience but can't actually visit there, there's actually a wonderful little game that they sell on the Thoreau site, thoreausociety.org, that I bought. And you actually get immersed in feeling like you're Thoreau, and you're traveling around, and you're meeting all these people back then. You're building your home, and you plant peas, and you have to do all these things at a certain time to get to get it all to work. And then you row across the lake. Oh, it's just a phenomenal experience. But of course, it would be even better with this music. So let's play some of this now. I just love the way you also transition through different parts of the, without missing a beat, so to speak. I mean, there's still this underlying rhythm, but it changes its nature, and it's just really wonderful. So this might be a good time to introduce your new premiere, your new piece. Do you want to talk a bit about that first?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So I have been for the last several years. I release singles about every month and a half, and then it ends up being an album at the end of when I get to 10 or 11 of them. And I've got a new single that's coming out on January 27th. I'm really excited about it, and it's called Believe. And it's really this. It's kind of the concept there, of course, is it's very easy to be a skeptic, and it's like we can be skeptical of things, and we can try to knock things down, and it can be argued that it's more courageous to actually to believe in things that maybe there isn't enough evidence for, and this, I think this falls in my faith category and my humanity category of composition. It's like I think we would all be better off if we would believe in things that are greater than the minutia that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and believe in humanity and believe.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Oh my
instead
God.
of saying these are all the things that wrong that these people are doing or these people are doing, it's like if we can believe in humanity and that we're all part of a common progression. And so really that's what this is about for me. But more specifically, it really is about my faith and my Christianity, and just believing in things that are greater than most of the things we're dealing with on this earth. And so this is coming out in a couple of weeks, January 27th, streaming everywhere. Nobody's heard it yet, so you guys get a sneak preview of it, which is kind of fun.
This is a real treat. Thank you. By the way, this imagery is great. How do you get this imagery done? Do you have an artist that does it for you, or do you look for it online? Or
So I have a great in-house. So a lot of my children are creatives. I've got
oh my God,
that has a degree in film, and my son is working on that as well. And so they help me with graphic design and selecting images, and it's wonderful.
So this is a whole family endeavor going on here.
That's a blessing. Yeah, I mean they're doing their own things, but I try to pull them in and say, hey, can you help out, Dad?
Oh my God, that's great. That's great. So this is Believe, a premiere tonight for all of our special audience. Thank you. That's just great. David, now this sounds like all these are real instruments. Is that true, or are some of these digitally captured?
So that was a cellist
Hmm.
named Nicole Pinnell, who's fantastic. So she
Yeah.
came and did the cello. So when I'm composing and orchestrating, I like to, as you know, there's some sound libraries now that are fantastic,
Oh
and
my
and
God, yeah.
they're real instruments that you can use. And I use some of those in some of my songs, but I always add real instruments on top,
Hmm.
so that and so it can create this effect of a very large
Yeah.
orchestra, even though I've recorded here in my home, with maybe a cellist and violinist. So the technology is just amazing today.
Amazing. Yeah.
So
Now,
it's
I
a
wanted to
blend.
also, you have a beautiful piece where you're playing the piano and then you have a cellist in the room and your daughter singing. Is that Sunlight of the Human Spirit, or where is that?
So that is Heaven's Light.
Heaven's Light. I want to play that. I'm sure I have it in here somewhere. Here we go. Let's play that because that's just a wonderful thing. Um, Anything you want to say before I turn it on?
Yes, this one is extra special for me. So as you said, my mother was my piano teacher. My parents had me in such a musical environment. My mother passed away in August of this past year.
Oh my, I'm
And
sorry.
so this song was composed for her and dedicated
Mm.
to her and inspired by her. And so there are two components to this. One is Heaven's Light. I love when you're looking up at the clouds, maybe a cloudy day, and then you get a ray of light that comes down in contrast to the darkness. And for me, it seems like that's the light of heaven coming
Mm.
down. We're getting a glimpse into the glory of heaven.
Yeah.
The other thing, and what this is really about, is the heaven's light that emanated from my mother, Marilyn Tolk. We talk in Christianity about being the light of the world. She
Mm.
was that, and she used her musical talents to bless people's lives.
Mm.
And this goes to the why of why I composed this song. And my mother, I compose music to help people to feel peace and healing and perspective, and hopefully maybe even to help them to feel connection with heaven and
Mm.
things that are greater than us. And that's all from my parents and from my mother. And so this song is so special for me because it's about my mother and that influence that she had on me and on my music. We wouldn't be sitting here today and having this conversation and listening to this music
Yeah.
without the heaven's light that came through my mother through my entire life and inspired me and
Oh my
motivated me
God.
to use my musical talents for that purpose,
Yeah.
to help people to feel peace. So
I'm
that's what
sure
that's
she's looking
about.
down and she's very pleased with what you're doing. I'm sure. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. I'm getting so many wonderful comments from people that just absolutely love your music. Um, and Hillary mentioned earlier, this is true. We have a beautiful walk outside of Willimantic. There's a huge walkway across this giant dam that goes on for miles and miles and miles, and there's a little puddle jumper airport with one runway, and little two-seater planes come in and out, and we look down on it, and it's just such a wonderful walk. And I play this music as we're walking, and it's just like we're in our own movie. It's just a wonderful feeling, and I think we do feel closer to heaven with this. Actually, I really do think that's true. I have a couple of questions from people about, how do you go about staying grounded? Do you have a methodology for how you go about this? For example, my wife every morning before she even gets out of bed writes a page of her exercise book. Is there some process you do that keeps you so productive and successful?
So one of the things that helped me is we all went through this pandemic, and so as you said, I'm a lawyer during the day, and but for about 3 years now, I've been working from home, and that has given me some wealth of time that I didn't have before, and so I can literally finish a deposition right here on the screen, and then turn my chair to the right and start composing, and have done that.
I love
I will
that.
tell you that none of that music is inspired by those depositions or anything. That would be, I'm not going to have an album based upon my legal practice, but
might be a little nasty album.
yeah, that would not be good. There may be some dissonance.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do with composing is I love movie soundtracks. I love Hans Zimmer and Thomas Newman.
Yeah.
And all of the greats, James Newton Howard, and what I'm trying to do is compose a soundtrack for me that hopefully other people enjoy listening to. It's basically this soundtrack for my life.
Yeah.
This is my autobiography. I compose these things, and if you want to learn about me, who am I? Listen to my music, and that's my autobiography.
I love that. Tell me who else influenced you.
So George Winston was a biggie for me, and my first two albums are much more heavily solo piano, just kind of me and the piano, and then I kind of evolved a bit over time, and like I said, Thomas Newman is a huge influence. Max Richter, I love. Olafur Arnolds, I can't even pronounce his name, but I love his music. And just a lot of the film composers. I love Rachmaninoff, as you said. A lot of the classical composers. But a lot of my heaviest influences are our current film composers who are creating these soundtracks that are just amazing. And I will say, early on, I listened to Van Halen and Rush.
There you go.
Journey, and there's even some of that if you listen closely enough.
Yeah.
There's even some Van Halen and some of that, and some Rush. And some of my music buried in there deep. So it's fairly broad.
Yeah. Now, do you think of chord progressions, or do you kind of feel out the chords as they go, and move notes around? How do you come out with the structure?
So some of them start with a chord progression, like Walden Pond started with this progression. That actually remains through the entire piece, and things change on top of it. So you may not have an A, B, and a C section if you're just looking at the chord progression, but the changes happen on top of that underlying bed of music. And the song Believe, the new one that we just heard tonight, that started with a melody, with that. And so it's all that, and then what kind of chord progression am I going to have underneath that? What kind of orchestration am I going to add to that to create a soundtrack? So it depends on the song.
Now I'm going to, we probably want to do a little bit of a Q&A at the end, but I want to play a little bit of this last piece I discovered just yesterday, just going through online. And this is something that you dedicated to your wife, Lisa. And I just love the way you did the dedication. So let me share the screen. And this is over at, I don't know how you say this, a Tuacahn? Tuacahn?
It's a big Red Rock amphitheater, kind of like the Red Rocks one in Colorado. This is in southern Utah, just this beautiful outdoor amphitheater.
I love that. It looks like there's a huge audience out there.
Yes, that was a good night.
Wow, that's got to be a real rush there alone. Okay, here we go.
Right.
love performing here at this beautiful theater. I think instrumental music works really well outside. And this is actually a song that I wrote. This is on my newest album. It's a song that I wrote for my wife. And this song is called For Lisa. And coincidentally, my wife's name is Lisa. So this is for her. She's not.
That's a good thing, hey.
I thought that one through. But she's not here tonight, but it's dedicated to her anyway.
Thank you very much.
So,
I'll tell you just one quick, really funny thing. So that at that concert, so it's this beautiful amphitheater, and I was playing one of my songs, and the second verse is substantially similar to the first verse, and I was in the second verse, and suddenly the crowd just went crazy, and I was like, "What is going on? Like, this is incredible! They love this song." And then I found out afterwards that they had turned on the lights behind the stage to illuminate like this beautiful Red Rock Canyon, and so it wasn't about me.
Well, you know, my wife said, make sure this thing ends at 8 o'clock. And I did it, hon. I made it end at 8 o'clock. So, but, you know, you have over 12 CDs, each with probably at least an hour's worth of music. I mean, we couldn't possibly listen to it all tonight, but I think we had a great little taste of a little kind of a hors d'oeuvre here. I would like to open it to the floor now if anyone wants to unmute themselves. Anyone else want to say anything before we wrap up?
Hi. I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm kind of a young pianist. How did you, when you were younger and in high school, I heard you were writing music and stuff. How did you go about putting out your first music? What was the process there?
Yeah, so it wasn't actually until I was in law school. I was just about done with law school, and I was performing with a band, and we had put out a CD, and the guys were like, "You need to do your own CD." And I had never really thought about it. It's like, I'm going to do an album of piano. I'm no George Winston, but yeah, it was in 1996. I just went into a recording studio. Back then, you'd have to spend a ton of money and go into a big studio and record. And my wife had secretly saved up saved up some money that I didn't know about for me to go into the studio, and so recorded that album, which was really neat. It was special. That's why so many songs are named after her, among others. and so I made 1,000 CDs. And back then, I'd have to go into Barnes and Noble or Blockbuster Music or whatever, and they'd allow me to bring in a keyboard. I would just hope that someone an aisle over would hear my music. And now it's streaming everywhere, and I'll release the song on January 27th, and that day, people in hundreds of countries will be listening to my music. So as a young pianist, I'll tell you, there's never been a better time to be a musician. Like I encourage you to compose your music, record it, because you can have a worldwide, the potentiality is there for you to reach the world. The technology's there. It can just immediately have international distribution, which was beyond,
oh my God,
it was unfathomable when I released my first album. There's no way.
And Nathan, one of the things David told me earlier, which I was surprised at, is, I was afraid having all his music on YouTube would undermine, basically cannibalize his earnings. But in fact, he gets some ad revenue from that, but also people don't want to just, punch one song at a time. The streaming revenue for him has been amazing. So streaming does work, which is encouraging to hear, because I thought you hear a lot about, streaming, I can't make any money on it. But it sounds like it's really, something that's worked very well for David. So
yeah,
kudos
and
to you, David,
there is kind of there's a sweet spot for instrumental music, I think, with streaming, again, because it's a soundtrack. People can start streaming and say, this is the kind of mood I want to be in today, and they can stream instrumental music that's not intrusive. It's not like listening to Taylor Swift or something. It can be more passive listening, and so it can be a good thing for a pianist these
Great
days.
music to study to.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Any other comments before we wrap up? Thank you all so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. We will post this online eventually, so you can watch it again, or if your friends haven't had a chance to see it, do tell them, please. And thank you for coming. David, I can't thank you enough. You've brought a lot of light to the world, and will continue to do so. And you're blessed, and bless all of us with this music. So thank you so much. I'm sure your mom's very proud of you. And we are all very impressed and very grateful for your time and the wonderful energy you put into this. So thank you all again.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.